part of building a strong culture in a program is making sure that the parents are on board, that the players are on board, that the coaching staff is on board, that the community is on board with the program and the standards that are being set, right? And that is why I'm super excited to bring on our guest today. He is the head coach of Ridgevue High School's football program. His name is Kurt Taylor. Now, he's going into his first year at Ridgevue, but he has over 20 years of experience in coaching. And he's going to be talking about how they're changing the entire culture around Ridgevue High School football. It's really exciting for me. It's a personal one for me because I live in this area, right? And so it's important for me to kind of see how the community is going to be built and what they're doing over there to establish that culture. Now, Coach Taylor is going to be talking about a lot of things today. It's really, really cool. You're going to get to learn about him as a former football player, some of the things he did in high school, the injuries he sustained. We'll even talk a little bit about mental health and what that did to him back then and how he's overcome adversity through his life, in those situations, how he got into coaching, how he got to where he is now, and then what we can expect for the Ridgevue High School football program. I want to shout out some of my friends on the podcast today. Tim Worley, who's on the coaching staff, Bryson Taylor, Justin Zora. These guys are some of my best friends, and seeing them over there, on the coaching staff is a huge thing for me because I know how good these guys are as human beings, and I stand behind them. And so to see that's part of the culture is really exciting for me as well. So I'm really stoked. I hope all of you who are tuning in, whether you live in this area or not, can take some notes of this interview. There's some great golden nuggets. If you're trying to coach, you're trying to get into leadership, if you're trying to play, this is how you establish culture in a program. So come check this episode out of the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru Podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru Podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. As you guys have heard in the intro and everything, it's an exciting opportunity for me because I get the opportunity, as you guys know, this podcast, I talk to people from all over the globe, but I also like to bring people in my local community, place that I've grown up, and places that my kid might even go to school here soon in the next couple, 4 or 5 years. And so it's just really cool to bring in the local individuals that are leaders in the athletics world here. And today is another opportunity for us to do that. As you guys heard in the introduction, we're bringing on Coach Kurt Taylor, head coach of the Ridgevue High School football program. And we're going to get to pick his brain, get to learn from him. So Coach Taylor, thanks for joining the show, man.
Oh, thanks, Shane. I appreciate you having me on. What a blessing to be here with you, man.
Super cool opportunity, man. It's been a long time coming too. It's interesting because I've got a lot of ties with a lot of schools here, and interestingly enough, Ridgevue, I just never really had a ton of ties. But this year, I'm trying to get to know some people. A couple of my friends are helping coach over there: Tim Worley, Bryson Taylor, and a couple other guys that I'm really close with. And so now I get the opportunity to kind of bring you on. I had Coach Hoyt from the basketball program on the show. Just kind of cool. So and all the people I go to church with, everyone's in Ridgevue. I just need to get more connected with Ridgevue. So super dope. Awesome. So, Coach, before we talk about the Ridgevue football program, what we can expect as you're coming in for your first season this year, I want to get to know you and rewind the clock a little bit. So let's talk about just you, where you grew up, and kind of how you got into the athletics world yourself. Were you a football player yourself? Did you play multiple sports? How did the athletics world kind of get introduced to you, Coach Taylor?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I grew up in the Portland metro area, Beaverton, Aloha. I went to Aloha High School. Started playing football as a third grader, tackle football as a little bobblehead dude. Right. Absolutely fell in love with the game at an early age. When I should have been studying, I was reading books about everything I could find: Notre Dame, Newt Rockne, everything. It just encompassed me. And so, I grew up playing early. I played other sports, but I wasn't really interested in them like I was football. I was passionate about the game of football and lifting weights. And so I did play other sports. I even played golf in high school. So I played basically 4 sports in high school. but football was my end all be all. Getting into the coaching world of it, I always knew I was going to be a coach. I was the kid that was always asking questions, or even like drawing plays on a spiral notebook in math class and then bringing them to my head coach, and being humbled really quickly because it was me not knowing the game completely, and then him, trying to help me understand it. But I knew I was going to coach. And then kind of had a falling out about that. We can talk about that later too, because kind of it's a really cool whirlwind in how honestly God placed me where I'm at. But in high school, I had 2 really, really bad injuries, and was not able to play college football. Firstly, because of some physical things, but then mental things. I got really depressed in high school and did not pursue it like I should have. And didn't go and play college ball. And so I was working and kind of living at home as like a 19-year-old man and trying to find myself. And the coach that I had in high school left, and a new guy came in, Chris Casey, who was the head coach at George Fox University for a while. And my mentor, Bill Volk, who was the running back coach there, and Ty McSwain, they called me and said, "Hey, we need some young guys on this staff. Do you want to come coach?" And so as a 20-year-old man going into school in my undergrad at George Fox University, I became a football coach and, was blessed, so blessed to be a part of that staff and work under Coach Casey. His brother's Pat Casey, the Oregon State baseball coach, phenomenal family of faith. And he ran his program a very specific way, and I got to cut my teeth on that. And so, started coaching at a young age, moved to a couple of other schools before moving to Central Oregon. And then, had some family things, and then moved this way into the Treasure Valley. So yeah, I mean, this is my 21st season coaching football, man.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. Like you had kind of mentioned, and we'll probably go into more detail there, just how, God placed you in different places. I always say he's playing chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
And so like, for you had aspirations to play, but you had some injuries and some mental health stuff that had kind of come into play. And that kind of took those aspirations away, but then it also opened another door to something else that's now been your profession for 21 plus years, right? So It's kind of cool to see how that all works out. It's hard to see it in the moment sometimes, but as you kind of reflect on those types of things, it's pretty cool in my opinion. I'm a big believer in that. So I think that's awesome. I don't think everything's just a coincidence. I think there's divine inspiration for all the things that are happening. And I do want to kind of pick your brain on this though. When you mentioned the mental side of things where you kind of fell into a depression, did you feel like that was more related to the injuries that you experienced, or was that just something that was separate? Did it kind of compound with those injuries you had kind of experienced?
A great question again. 100% the injuries. So I went into high school football as one of the better players in our program. I was, I'm not a big dude. I mean, when you meet me, I'm 5'6", but I was a strong kid and I was very fast. And I wanted to go somewhere. That's all I cared about. All I wanted to do was be a college football program. I mean, literally, I would stay up at night, all night long, reading like books about Notre Dame and Florida State and all these things. And so my junior year, I was getting looks from schools and letters. And, of course, back then it was letters. And then coaches, were like barely talking to you. But I severely broke my ankle as a junior. Like an avulsion fracture, the ligament like ripped the bone off. And so I had that issue and kind of went downhill from there. Like I was still like, hey, I've got my senior year. I can do this. Kind of stopped working out as much as I should have. And then I get into my senior year, I had lost a step, and then mentally on both sides of the ball, I was nervous all the time. I became an anxious wreck. I was constantly worried about hurting myself. And then sure enough, my senior year, I did it again to the same ankle. And I stopped getting any type of contact from any school, lower and bigger schools. And man, it hurt. Like it put me in a funk. Like I stopped lifting weights. I didn't care about my grades. I didn't care about my social life. I would go home and like sleep all day long. And my parents could never figure out what it was. And I carried that all the way through, even into my first couple of years in college, and looking back on it now. And this is why I'm so adamant with my players. Like, you don't want to have regrets. You don't want to leave anything on the table. And had somebody just been like, hey, get your rear end in gear, let's go. Like, it's done, it's over, move on. And could have shown me just that little bit of light that I still could have done it or still could have played. I would have probably really relished that, but that wasn't there. Nobody did that for me at the time. And when I became a coach, I really struggled to it a little bit more too, because I saw that I could have done it. Like, it would have been an easy thing had I just, pulled my head out of my rear end and worked harder and went and walked on somewhere and been a part of a program somewhere. And so that mental piece is something that I test with our boys frequently, because I truly believe now that you really can achieve anything. I live by the motto that, like, hard work is the great equalizer. And I think that's a testament to where we're at now with the programs that we've been able to establish in coaching. But it's also, being able to get that door to open up for our boys to see.
Oh, for sure. Well, I appreciate you kind of sharing that, because, Coach, I've talked to a lot of different people, coaches, athletes, whether they were professionals, high school, it doesn't matter. I've talked to a lot of people, and there's been some similar experiences, and that's why I kind of wanted to pick your brain. I mean, even Jake O'Neill, who's a local guy here from Fruitland, Idaho, who's playing professional basketball now. He was on the show last month, and he talked about an injury that he sustained breaking his leg in high school, and how that, spiraled amongst a lot of other things. I was sharing, dude, even as a 28-year-old, when I tore my shoulder out, man, like, I went into a depression because of all the other things that, like, got disrupted. I wasn't even a collegiate athlete at the time. I was far past that, but that kind of disrupted me for years. And so I love that you shared that and kind of explaining, like, you could have gotten back. Here's the things that you struggled with. It's okay. But, like, injuries happen in athletics, stuff like that will happen. And you have to be prepared for the mental grind that will come from that, because you're not going to be able to do the exact same thing at first that you were able to do before. You might hesitate and have some, anxiety about things. You were mentioning Notre Dame. I don't know if you watched that thing with Manti Te'o. He had the series on Netflix called Untold, and he was discussing the whole situation. But one thing that he referenced was, like, how he started hesitating, right? Like, everything played in his mind with all the stuff that happened in college, and then he gets to the NFL, and he's got all this extra external pressure. So then he starts hesitating, and when he starts hesitating, that's when he's not playing as well. And yeah, you mentioned that, like, anxieties and stuff, everything just compounds. So it's normal. I want the athletes that are listening, or even parents that are listening to this podcast, it's normal. So if you sustain an injury, or you're going through a mental grind, even without an injury, just continue to work and think, and just listen to what Coach Taylor just said right there. Like, there are things, hard work can help you if you just understand that's going to happen and work through it. And if you need help, find a mentor that can help you get through, but don't fight the battle alone, in my opinion. So that's cool though, to hear how you've gotten through that, and that you're instilling this into the kids. You're teaching the kids that you're in charge of now. Now, Coach, you mentioned you got into the Treasure Valley after, some stints in Oregon where you were at. Then you came over to the Treasure Valley, or into the, I shouldn't say Treasure Valley, but you were into the area, the state of Idaho. So talk to us about, like, your coaching experience in Idaho. After all these years, you're getting this experience. And then what was your coaching experience like in Idaho thus far before you got to Ridgevue?
Well, quite frankly, Shane, it's kind of brand new, honestly. So in Oregon, I was a head coach for almost a decade at Madras High School in Central Oregon, and did some stints in the Valley at some pretty big schools. In Redmond High School, I was there for 4 years, and had a ton of success as an assistant and as a head coach. Turned that program around at Madras. And went through some really tough times, some major traumas in my life as an adult. So there you go. You see it again, right? I believe, quite honestly, that God took coaching away from me because I was allowing my ego to be in it, and I wasn't doing it for His purpose anymore. And I lost a family through that, and went through some really, really tough times in Oregon, right? And so I go through a pretty tough divorce, but then I meet the woman of my dreams, and she's from Meridian. And we get married, and she moves into Oregon, and we have 2 little twin baby girls, and they're born with cerebral palsy. And so the doctors in Central Oregon are like, hey, you can move to Portland, or you can move to the Boise area to get these girls what they need moving forward for their lives. And that was a really easy decision. Like, I grew up in Portland. We're not moving back to Portland, right? And so we moved to this area. I got the job to be the head football coach at Payette High School and the vice principal there. And was there for 3 years as the principal. I was only the head coach there because they wouldn't let me be the principal and the head football coach. So I was the defensive coordinator there for 2 years. And then I took that last year off. And then by circumstance, Coach Thorson, whom was here, who's a friend of mine from Oregon, coached against him when he took the Rocky job. We really prayed about it and was like, you know what, I want to be a football coach again. Like, this is what my calling is. I'm going to do this thing. And then we're here, and it's been awesome. We've been here since February, and, we were pulling 2 jobs there, principal and head football coach there for a little bit. But now we're here, and we've been here this whole summer. And so, yeah, it's new to be here to Idaho. That's why I'm so thankful for you to get me on this, because for me, it's also a really good opportunity for me to network and, hopefully meet other coaches in the area and start building those relationships. Because I tell you what, Shane, Idaho football is no joke. Especially this area, there is great football, the players, great coaches in this area, schematically, culture. So I am excited to pick those guys' brains and continue to grow in my growth as a head football coach.
And that's so cool. Well, I'm grateful to have you on the show, man. This is super cool for me. Like, this is why I love doing this podcast, though, Coach, because like, I wouldn't have known that. I don't know I don't know how open you are to the public about some of this stuff typically. I mean, it's not like you're probably just like discussing all of it all the time, but like it helps us understand, like, you are a human being, right? You go through the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of life. And as someone like myself, I've also gone through a divorce when I was younger, in 2013. And I know the impact that can have on your life. There's a lot of things that happen with that. And I too met the woman of my dreams later on, and we have a beautiful family and stuff too. So things work out the way they're supposed to work out. And so I just like, I resonate with it a little bit. So I really appreciate you opening up on that front, because I'm like, okay, this guy's doing the thing. Maybe I can do the thing too, because I love this. So coming into Ridgevue. So this high school has been around for like 10 years or so, relatively new in the area. So like, when I grew up, I went to Meridian High School. I'm a Meridian High School alum, class of 06, shout out to them. But back in this direction in the Nampa area, like, all it was Valley View. Like, we didn't even have Columbia back then. So like, it was Valley View, and then you had Nampa and Skyview. Later on, obviously, Ridgevue gets built and is kind of over here doing its thing. It's taking the north side of Nampa. Now, historically, the program was kind of like, especially football, it's just like, man, they were struggling to get some success, but they've seen some success as of last year. And now we're on a coaching change, right? Coach Thorson, everything like shifts over. This is now the 3rd coach, I believe, in 4 years at this program specifically. Yeah. Talk to me about that and how, like, the students, I mean, it's hard for those athletes that they kind of get some momentum and then they feel like, oh, it's almost deflating, but it's like, no, how do we kind of get everybody on board? What's your theory? And like, how do you come in and make sure like the coaching staff, the parents, the players understand that, like, I'm here to do this thing. Their best interests are in mind. How do you get that culture to kind of rally with so many coaching changes?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It was and has been a difficult endeavor, especially with our older players who, like our seniors, have had 3 head coaches in their 4 years here. And when Coach Thorson left, they didn't hide their emotions. They were hurt by it. And quite frankly, some of them are still grieving it and trying to figure out whether or not they're going to jump on the bus with our culture and what we're doing, or if they're still going to kind of just watch from afar. And that's my biggest goal this year, is to figure out a way to get those older kids to jump on the bus and ride it with us, because they're immensely talented. It's one of the most athletically talented groups that I've been around in a long time coaching. And so that's just it, Shane. It's getting them on the bus. It's getting them to buy into the culture. I decided as the head coach that I wasn't going to call the defense. I hired Tim Worley to be our defensive coordinator. I'm going to be our special teams coordinator. But I've always been a defensive guy. And so I'm really kind of taking that CEO role and manager role as the head football coach in order to put those things at the forefront of what this program is, because it's not just that piece that we're dealing with. There hasn't been a culture here. There hasn't, it's been open for 10 years. They've struggled for 10 years, and coach comes in and kind of shows them what it looks like to run a winning program. Oddly enough, Coach Thorson and I are cut from the same coaching tree. So Ad Rutschman at Linfield, coach played for him, and my mentor played for him. That we are very similar, and there's a lot of similarities. So, Coach Thorson knows what he's doing and was able to get these guys rolling. And that's just kind of what we're doing. We're building upon what he put into place, but then we're taking all of the things that I'm bringing to the table too. Specifically like our core values, which is it's our acronym of desire, discipline, effort, service, integrity, respect, and excellence. And we hold them to what I call our standard, which is a cultural blueprint. And that is everything that we do. And that culture, culture is not, Shane, you've probably had guys on this podcast say this 100 times, but culture isn't a bunch of posters on your walls. It's not how you talk. It's not how you dress. Culture is your core values plus your coach and player expectations plus your coach and player experience. And that's what becomes your culture. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We are really opening the door to the bus, so to say, and say, hey, you're either getting on this thing and we're going to roll and do some really cool things, or, you've struggled the last 4 years. Nobody's really had you or held you to this kind of a standard. There's another bus. Good luck. Right. And so that's where we're at. And luckily, 99% of them are getting on the bus with us because we've hired a really good staff. We've implemented a lot of really good football things, and I like to have fun. I do this because I love it and I want to have fun. I don't do it to, grind kids into the dirt. We do it to have fun, teach them how to be good men, good football players, and the rest takes care of itself.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Shout out Tim Worley. That's my guy right there. I love Tim. Just as enough. I like Justin Zora, Bryson Taylor, Tim Worley. Like, those are my guys, dude. I really appreciate all of them and just their friendships outside of that. So it's kind of cool to see that they're actually coaching over there and stuff and being part of the program and helping change these guys and helping them develop into good young men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I can see. So like, here's the other component in Idaho athletics right now with open enrollment always going on and so forth. Like, it's really hard for athletic departments and programs because these kids can go anywhere they want. Like, come freshman year, if they really want to go to another school, they can go to another school. If they can get in there, and they'll go wherever they want to go to win. That's just how it is. Like, and you have to have a winning culture and a stable program for people to like want to go, because this north side of Nampa, for those who are listening that are outside of our state, the north side of our city has a lot of new people coming in. There's tons of families coming in. And so the idea is hopefully this young wave of new families will be going to Ridgevue. They'll be like, hey, instead of like transferring from one school to the other, and then as we build more schools, there's just gonna be more options for kids to go. And you want to build that program because people want to go and play where they're going to develop and win. I can see the reason I asked that culture question, Coach, is because, as a kid, I can imagine as a youngster, you're in your teens, there's almost like a trust thing. You almost don't trust because like, it's almost like, okay, Ridgevue is just a stepping stone for these coaches. It's just, they're going to come in, they're going to get their experience. Oh, cool little boom. And then they bounce, and it's hard for them to trust anybody. They don't know what to trust. And so that's why it's cool to hear kind of what you're doing to establish that culture. And I love it. The other component is the community factor. I would love to hear your thoughts on the community here, what you know of them so far. I know it's been relatively recent that you guys got over here, but like so far, what are you experiencing with the community around Ridgevue athletics, specifically Ridgevue football?
Yeah, we are fully supported. It's one of the best communities that I've been in as far as support from parents, local stakeholders. I think people are excited for our program and what we're doing. I think last year's team started that, kind of kindled the fire. And now with our staff taking over, I think we've increased that, and people are really excited for what we're doing, not only this coming season, but moving forward. I think the type of community, this community is begging for a coach to come in here and be consistent and stay, and that's what I tell them. Like, I'm not going nowhere. It's not a stepping stone for me. I've been a part of big school programs. I was fortunate to be a part of a state championship team in Oregon. I've been there, done that. I want to be here for a while, and so does my wife. Right? We're sick of all the changes, and so I think that's also something that they're really thinking about, and it's on their mind. And some of them will just straight up ask you, like, "Hey, well, are you going to leave too?" And for me, the answer is no. Pending any life-changing circumstances, I'm staying a Warhawk. And I think that people in this community, you're right. Like, they can choose. Like, hey, I'm a mile and a half down the road from Ridgevue High School. I'm just going to go there, and so it does make it tough. But I think if you can continue to build a fence around what we have here in North Nampa, and continue to put in the work with the younger kids, and like, we have our 5th graders, they're practicing on our practice field. Like, we want them there. We want them to we want to see them practice. I want to be able to walk over there and give them high fives and start establishing what is an actual program, within all of our middle schools and those younger kids. And that has been lacking. And I think as you build a program and you sustain a community, you have to be visible in all of those areas in order for them to build that trust, so that they do say, hey, I'm going to be a freshman next year. I'm going to go be a Warhawk. I want to be a part of what Coach Taylor and his staff are doing. And you have to put the work in to do that. And that's what really good programs do. And then once you've got that established and you've got tradition like a Rocky, then I mean, you can do whatever you want to, right? And so that's a big part of what we're trying to do now. My biggest thing is I have to stay patient in that, right? Because it's very easy to say, okay, hey, it's going to take time to build this, dude. It is, we're going to have success early because we've got athletes, but if we want to have sustained success, we have to put that community work in.
Totally. And I love that you brought that up too, like the 5th grade. For example, my son's playing for the Warriors football club. That's a feeder kind of into the Columbia sphere, but like there's a couple mixed kids from different areas too in the Nampa side. But Warhawks have their little club team now that's coming into it for the IYFL, which this is relatively new in this area, right? It used to be Optimus football only. Now they've got the Idaho Youth Football League, which they're kind of framing those into preparing them. They're running similar schemes as the high schools. They're getting to know the high school players. They're getting to know the high school coaches. So when they get to Sage Valley, which is the middle school here, they're running similar schemes. So they understand the culture. They understand that. And 4 years later, all of a sudden they're at the pro. And I think it's awesome now that Ridgevue's finally got one. Like Ridgevue's got one and all these schools are starting to pop up with these like youth football teams that are kind of rolling with similar schemes. And I think it's fantastic because it does. I mean, and I can see how, you got to be patient because you're like, man, we got all these things we got to do. But like little by little, and it sounds like the stepping stones are there too. Like you're putting the pieces in, and it's like, okay. The other thing I'd say is like, what a great opportunity for your athletes that you're coaching right now to be part of that. Like they'd be like these juniors and even seniors, right? Like, hey, these little kids that are playing, you guys get to be a part of that. Like you're going to be a part of this story. So it might not be exactly this year, but years down the road, 4 or 5 years down the road, you might see these kids playing and you can say, hey, I started this by building this community. Like that's a cool opportunity for these guys to lead a player-led program. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a really cool opportunity what you guys have over here. And you guys got athletes. So talking about this, like the athletes themselves, you got quite a few returners on offense. Defense has a little bit of a shift around, but like you've got some dudes coming to play at Ridgevue. So talk to us about what the expectations are, kind of like who is there any players to watch, what we're expecting to see? Is there any leaders that you're looking forward to like seeing how they lead, anything of that nature?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We have dudes. Like when you look at the film from last year, and you look at the guys that we bring back, we have several all league players coming back, a couple of honorable mention guys, and a couple of guys that an Owen Mallard, who didn't see much time on defense, but now is going to be a senior and didn't see that much time because we had such good inside linebacker play last year. Owen Mallard's a dude. This kid is a dude. I'm trying to get him as published as possible, but we got a quarterback in Hunter Schmidl that's 6'3" and can throw the rock a country mile on a dot, and is immensely cerebral. Probably one of the smartest quarterbacks that I've been around in a long time. And we got Jerem Walker at running back. We've got 3 sophomores that are going to play varsity football that will be phenomenal football players when they get to be seniors. One of them, Easton Arcers, will start for our defense. We've got guys, we got guys coming out of our ears, but the biggest thing, like we said earlier, is, and you just said it, who's the leader, right? And that's the work that we're putting in now, is trying to get those guys like Hunter, Owen, Levi Childers, Jerem to be leaders. Because they have not been taught that here. They haven't. And, and they know that. And some of them are, really wanting to learn how to do that. And we're setting up a leadership council, and I'm having Hunter read one of John Gordon's book, The Hard Hat. And, so we're trying to implement these things to get these boys to be a little bit more vocal and to lead by example and set that standard. And when those things come into place, oh man, look out. And we talk about what you just talked about, what kind of legacy are you trying to leave here as seniors, probably the most athletic senior group that's about to play their senior year and then leave. What kind of legacy are you setting for these sophomores and freshmen and 8th graders as you roll out this last year here? Do you want to be a mediocre team because you weren't willing to step up and be a leader and do the things that we're asking of our standard? Or are we going to excel and make the playoffs and win a playoff game and show these kids what postseason play looks like because they've accepted that standard and they relish accepting the standard and the challenge that comes along with it, with their athleticism? And that's my job. That's why, again, I decided to be the CEO, because like you said, phenomenal athletic guys, defensively too. I mean, we are loaded. We really are. We just have to get them to buy in.
Sure thing. And I hope that if the athletes happen to come across this podcast and they're listening, or even the parents, what an awesome opportunity. I'm a huge proponent. In my full-time profession, I'm a marketing director. I've spent 12 years in corporate leadership as a marketing director at various companies, leading teams. And I can tell you right now, those things you're just talking about, all the leadership qualities that you have the opportunity, don't take that for granted if you're an athlete on this program. What an opportunity. Lead. Those skills you will acquire there will go years and years. I'm 38 years old next month, and I'm telling you right now, I've taken all my athletic lessons with me into the corporate world years after school got out. I mean, my 20-year reunion is on Saturday for high school, and I'm sitting here dude, I've taken all those lessons with me for 20 plus years. There are so many great opportunities to lead and then take those with you. Do not take it for granted. And what an awesome, I would be stoked right now to have somebody who is actually taking it serious to lead. And those are things that aren't some people are natural leaders. Not everyone is, but I will say this, I'm going to share an example. I had a quarterback on my podcast named Brad Johnson. He used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He played for a variety of teams, went to Florida State, all this stuff. So Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers early 2000s. And when I had him on the show and he was talking about that Tampa Bay Buccaneers squad, they talked about the standard that was set. I mean, he was like, dude, I was probably the weakest link on the team, but the standard that was set between the athletes and the coaches every day, the way they prepared, the way they ate and slept and everything, there was a standard. They had to prepare a certain way. They held each other to that standard, and all the leaders led. And so everybody naturally just rose up. The coaches raised up, everybody was just leveling up, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl that year. So it's kind of cool to see from a Super Bowl winning champion, he talks about the standard, the culture, everything. So anyway, it just continues to go. If you guys just take these lessons. So Coach Taylor, I mean, I'm trying to think here, if you look at your career thus far, like it's just all the years, the ups and downs, everything in between, what would you say is the biggest life lesson that football has taught you thus far?
Oh man, the biggest one. Yeah. I think what I said earlier, hard work is the great equalizer, is probably the biggest one. It's kind of a double-edged sword because you could live by that motto and it can hurt you, like what happened to me when I was a head coach in Central Oregon, sleeping on a cot in my office. And, but like, for anybody out there that's really struggling with those types of things, if you really just put your nose to the grindstone and work efficiently, it truly does pay off, and another thing too that I've learned is that you can only control what you can control, right? Like you're going to have events that happen in your life, right? And you're going to react to those events, and that's going to cause the outcome of what's going to happen, and you can be super negative about them, or you could be positive and really try to learn from it and fail forward from whatever's happening in your life with that event, and take it for the better and change the outcome, and that's something that even as a grown man, as a 40-year-old man that was going through a divorce and trying to blend a family, that I've had to reteach myself and try to navigate through really hard times, and we're all going to suffer. Everybody will suffer in their life, if you're willing to be positive and grow in that suffering and use it as an opportunity to fail forward, at some point it will get better. And I think that's why the game of football is the best classroom in the world, and, I love all the other sports, and I want our boys to be multi-sport athletes. We want them playing basketball. We want them in the wrestling room. We want them on the baseball diamond. But man, I tell you what, football is like, it's one of those sports where you're going to fail. Every single game, you're going to fail at some point. Are you going to sulk in it, or are you going to reset and step up and do it the next one? And so I think that's what I've taken more than anything from this whole journey, is that, you're always going to go through tough times, and those tough times could really, really put you down in the dirt. But if you're willing to work hard, change what you can change within yourself, at some point the outcome's going to go your way. And a lot of our kids in this building, and a lot of kids in this area that come from tough families and from a lot of tough things that they're going through, they need to hear that motto 1,000 times over. Because let's be honest, Shane, like high school is one of the easiest times of your life. When you get out of the door of this building, the real world's going to smack you in the mouth. And what are you going to do about it?
I love that, man. It's so true. I coach high school basketball for the club basketball scene. So I coached for 5 years for the 17 U squads for club ball. And that was the conversation I had constantly, coach, was just over and over, just discussing with them, hey, in a year, you're going to have to figure some stuff out. Life's not easy anymore, whether you go to college, whether some of them would serve church missions, some of them would go into the workforce. Life's gonna hit you, and you're gonna have to be prepared for it. And it's so true. I stay in touch with all these kids, and it's so true. I hope that the kids that are listening to this right now understand what you're saying, and they take advantage of everything that they're learning under your watch, so that they can take those into the next phase of life. Now, one thing that stood out to me, and it's funny, can you still hear me? I want to make sure you can still hear me on this.
Yeah, I can. I can hear you.
Okay. Cool, because you're frozen on my side, but I figured that would happen. So just for everybody who's listening right now or watching, we're good. We can still hear each other. So here's the question I had. You said earlier, Coach, prior to injuries and so forth in your career, you were strong. You were hitting the weight room and so forth. I want to talk about the importance of the weight room before we wrap this one up. The weight room, and how are you instilling that into the kids? Because I want the athletes to understand the importance of the weight room and dedicating themselves to the weight room. Because some kids are scared to lift weights. I don't know why, but it's part of the culture as well. So talk to us about the weight room and what you learned through your experience lifting weights.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been blessed to be a strength and conditioning coach and been in the weight room as a teacher for a long time. And, the weight room is the foundation and the foundational work of every successful football program or any athletic program. And it really is. The avenue in which you become a better athlete is set in the weight room. It's set physically through the growth and the hypertrophy of your physical muscles, through the growth of mental toughness, because you are really hurting in a workout and you've got to dig deep and get through that workout. And, that is a culture change for us here at Ridgevue. That is something that we're trying to get going, because it hasn't been a consistent standard for this program, ever, I don't think. And you can see that a little bit in how games have been managed, and you can see it even in the physical status of some of our boys. But, that weight room is everything for us. It sets that standard. And we are what I would call, and you guys can look this up, we're a sprint-based football model. It's Tony Holler. It's what the University of Indiana is using right now. It's all about speed. And, our boys match this methodology perfectly. But our weight room really piggybacks on that sprint-based model. And we want to be the best triple extension athletes, ground-based model athletes that we can have on our football team. And that's something that we're really trying to impose with our boys. And it's important for every athlete. And like I said, more so than just the physical, but the mental. When you're really going through it, if you can tell that little guy inside of your head, no, I've got one more rep, you be quiet, I'm going to get this done. And you get that rep, man, what better way to teach yourself how to get through hard things than that weight room?
Ah, man, I love it so much. That is such a good piece of insight there. Just like, that is it. It's the mental grind, talking to that voice in your head, getting through the physical pain, and just, pushing yourself to be uncomfortable. I think there's a lot of kids, even adults, man, who are scared to push themselves to the limit, to where they're either failing or close to failure in a physical and mental battle, because they don't know how to react. But when you can do that, man, it's crazy. Like, then you're in the fourth quarter and you're getting double teamed on the line, and you're not scared of that anymore. Once you figured that out, you're like, okay, I ain't scared of this double team. I'm going to take this double team on. I'm going to open up the gap. My linebacker's going to come in here and fill this. I can handle this. Even when you're tired, you're getting pushed back, you're like, no, I can do another one. It just helps you so much. I love that. If you had, as a strength and conditioning coach, somebody like yourself with all that experience, if you could choose one lift, like one exercise, if it was like, hey man, I want my athletes to just get really good at this. I know there's a whole plethora of things we need to do, speed, agility, everything. But for explosion, just for the sport of football or whatever it might be, even not football, just whatever, what would be that lift that you think is the most important for an athlete?
For football, power clean, 100%. You're working into a triple extension movement. You're getting your ankles, your knees, and your hips to extend. After being in flexion, it's the perfect example of how we want to tackle. And we want to derive strength from that triple extension based off of the ground. I love the squat. Squat is great. Everybody wants to be able to bench press 1,000 pounds, but you know what? When you're done playing football, you don't really need to bench press very much, right? But we want guys to be able to move other dudes, and you have to do that through ground force and move them. And so for me, it's definitely the power clean. It's my favorite lift. Like, if you told me you can only lift one lift for the rest of your life, I'm going to be doing a power clean.
I'm smiling while you're saying that, because I literally have said those exact words, but I'm not a strength and conditioning coach. I just love the power clean as an athletic movement. Oh man, that makes me so happy. I was talking to my buddy Bryce about this, and just like, yeah, if I were to just like tell athletes, I would make them do power cleans. Like, if you do it right, they're so good for explosion. Like, dude, it's awesome. It's everything that you need in athletic movement. So I'm so happy to hear that right now. Okay, that's dope. Well, Coach Taylor, I am just really excited for us to go, get to see your program compete this year and see how you guys improve throughout the course of the season. For all those who are in the Treasure Valley, keep an eye on Ridgevue football. They're over here in the north side of Nampa, not too far. 4 miles, would that be west of, I guess, Canada Boulevard. So you're not too far from Hawaii, about 5 miles away from Ridgevue High School. If you guys are trying to come catch a game, come out this way. Come catch Ridgevue and see what they're up to. It's going to be an exciting season for them. And Coach Taylor, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me. I know you guys are busy with a lot of stuff going on. Football starting up. So just really appreciate your time and efforts. I'm looking forward to getting to talk to you more, man.
No, thank you, Shane. Like I said, appreciate the opportunity. Blessed that you had me on, and you are welcome here anytime for anything, man. Just show up anytime and come watch us practice and, be a part of what we're doing, man.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I'll take you up on that offer. And for all those who are listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button on whichever platform that you're listening to, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is, and hit the subscribe button because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. So take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.